I think I should start off by acknowledging my biases here. See, I'm a huge fan of the Yakuza and Battlefront franchises. As you can clearly see on my channel, many hours of my life have been poured into games of these two franchises, and I only regret about 5% of them. My admiration for the Yakuza games are pretty simple to understand, I would say, but I suspect I'll get some pushback on the whole Battlefront thing thanks to the involvement of EA. Not a lot of nuance gets presented when you mention the big baddies over at Redwood, and I'm not really here to get into that discussion. While I will say that there is a difference between DICE and EA, as well as all the other studios that work on Star Wars games. DICE have earned my trust, and I'm fairly confident I can pick out which decisions are theirs and which are EA's. And believe it or not, but there are good and bad decisions on both ends. EA does some stupid shit with their developers, especially early on in most games launches, but after that they tend to leave them alone. And it seems that's the price we have to pay the executives at the top so that the employees at the bottom can carry out their vision with little interruption, at least relative to other studios whose games I've played. So basically, EA sucks, yeah, but if you can enjoy launch and you're not playing a sports game, it's actually smooth sailing from there. And you know, it's all DICE or whatever studio calling the shots then. So I like DICE, I like Yakuza, and I like Star Wars games, and especially recent Star Wars games, you might have noticed. So expect my view to be slanted in that direction if that gives you any guidance. That being said, I felt E3 this year was just fine. Nothing spectacular, and certainly nothing like 2014, my first real E3, or 2016 when Sony's presentation peaked, and from then they've kinda just faded away after that, which is a shame. Don't get me wrong, there were some great games, at least on paper, E3 hyped watermark paper, like Psychonauts 2, Elden Ring, Metroid Dread, new Halo, Breath of the Wild. Wow, Microsoft and Nintendo really did all the heavy lifting here, huh. Anyway, I suppose the new Avatar game and Marvel's Avengers 2.0, I mean Guardians of the Galaxy, oops, deserve a mention alongside Starfield, which was just a video extensively of a spaceship and a spaceman. Fun. These games had their presence, but it took me until after Tuesday when Nintendo held the last press of E3 to actually appreciate what I had saw. Nothing that I wasn't already specifically looking forward to piqued my interest at the moment of reveal, and I feel like there's a few reasons for that. First, all the good games coming out were the ones we already knew about in some way or another. Elden Ring, Halo, Breath of the Wild 2 were all announced way back, and while we got some more details on what to expect, surprisingly there wasn't much of a deep dive you might have been expecting or that we haven't seen before. From my perspective, all the games that are really going to capture my attention this year were all shown off before E3 started in earnest on June 10th. Sony showed off the new Horizon in more detail than what other games got at E3 just a few weeks prior. Last Judgment had its reveal and first showcase in May on Judgment Day, with a deep dive into more of the press side than gameplay. But hey, they showed off everything there would be basic questions on, and it's no surprise at this point the series at how the gameplay is going to pan out. A quirk of having such a serialized franchise of games, I suppose. Finally, Battlefield started itself in the Xbox showcase, but only with its gameplay trailer. The actual reveal was a fun little game on social media for a few days, and then a full reveal on June 9th. My perspective here is biased since I love Battlefront and the Battlefront franchise, and have a huge respect for DICE, but Battlefield has a good reputation amongst the FPS genre, and according to my research, their reveals both in and out of E3 signal a return to form that I have to admit, not being invested in the series, I failed to pick up on. Rest assured, the trailers may seem average, but DICE were actually trying to show what you can do in-game, rather than trying to represent how you may feel while playing it, like so many other trailers. From that perspective, the game actually seems pretty deep with tons of options, and definitely the beautifully executed FPS formula found in the Battlefront franchises expanded even further now that no considerations have to be made for Star Wars fans that might not enjoy getting used to deeper mechanics. So games that we knew about already did make anywhere from a decent to good impression at E3, but the real hype builders were not really within the E3 walls. Instead, what we did see from the larger community was them hyping up already known about games. The biggest buzz around the whole event was for more details on Halo, Elden Ring, and maybe Breath of the Wild. People excited to return to these types of games certainly created the most buzz. Maybe it's fitting that we all emerge from 2020 and re-familiarize ourselves with these events once again, with something warm and familiar. I guess there's nothing wrong with getting new details on highly anticipated games. It certainly got a lot of people all excited, and at the end of the day, that's pretty cool. I know I felt more excited for after they released more details, after their gameplay reveal. Second reason E3 felt real mid to me was that no new games captured the imagination like they have previously. Man, remember that Spider-Man PS4 trailer or the first deep gameplay of Metal Gear Solid 5? Those are the moments I remember E3s for. Most new games either left me underwhelmed, confused, or generally unexcited, which is fair enough. Not every game is going to capture my attention, but I didn't really see a unanimous consensus on new releases being hyped up. Metroid did well as the only new reveal to get the same level of analysis, but conversations quickly shifted back to the known games, however, because there isn't much to know about Metroid Dread just yet. Third reason E3 didn't really resonate with me, I didn't even feel bad skipping the Ubisoft conference like I did, was because of the disconnection of the show. Previous E3s felt real tight. All announcements were in that week of E3. Some might have tried to branch out just before, but unless they brought out something really huge like the new consoles, it just flew under the radar. I specifically remember all E3s because they went on way into the early hours of the morning during the start of exam months, and they were great stress relievers and great stress motivators, but they were always contained over an extended weekend of sorts. It was awesome. After last year, however, things have just felt disjointed. No longer is there a tight schedule, a weekend and then a Tuesday or Wednesday for Nintendo, and then a quick wrap up as we all go back to normalcy. Instead, this time big players like Sony have mini events weeks before their time, inspiring smaller studios to do the same. EA wants the opener for the event, distances themselves from it by having an event 1 month and 1 week after it rolled around. Little events or blurbs of information appeared at random points in this new timeline to further disconnect what was once, at least in the mainstream, a pretty tight event. So yeah, E3 this year wasn't terrible. It was fine, just as I said. I think it mostly came down to nothing grabbing me in the moment. First, the games I'm most excited about, Horizon and obviously Lost Judgment, already had the press conferences, so I wasn't looking for much going forward. And certainly 4 games I already knew about. There was no spectacular look at this banger presentation or trailer from E3 moment found in previous years, and the biggest excitement came from revealing more info on already anticipated games, and not in any sort of spectacular manner either. I do admit a lot of smaller communities got more details that they wanted after the fact on websites and interviews. Like I imagine Atlas fans were happy with their new game details, just like how I and other fans of DICE or just Battlefield in general were happy to microanalyze everything we received after the trailer. Again, getting hyped after the fact isn't bad. It is just, much like E3 this year, fine.